Okay, thanks for spending this warm summer day with us, everyone. And this is just like a hangout, just have a chat with the coaches we have in the house. And I'll just quickly run through a bit of what we do here at Immigrant Tech is Alberta, especially for Michelle, who is not Canadian at all, right? So I think, yeah, I just quickly go over what we do here.
Yes.
Except I can't find my screen. Oh, come on, not today.
Oops.
Have you got multiple screens there?
Yes. Oh, come on. I probably closed it. Okay, I'll just talk about it.
It's always like that when you have multiple screens.
Yes, I know. And I thought that would make things easier. That's why I wanted everything to be separate so things don't mix up. Anyways, so Immigrant Tech is Alberta is a meetup group that was put together to help to achieve two purposes, like help immigrant professionals who don't have a network yet and are looking at tech careers and just don't know where to start from, because that was me. Like, what's all this tech buzz about? What does it even mean? Is there a place for me? What do the terminologies mean? And how can someone break it down so that I can make sense of it before I start to think about what I can do with it? So for me, I kind of, just out of curiosity, just wanted to see what was happening in that space. So I started attending events and I saw so many cool things like resources, dedicated people, support system. And I was blown away. Like, how do many people not know about this? And I think about immigrant professionals, especially, you're new, you don't even have a network yet because you left them somewhere else. And so how do you navigate? So that's why this meetup group was founded, just to bring people together basically and chat about tech careers, opportunities, what you can do, how you can transfer what you already have. And on the other hand, we have Calgary, Alberta economy, that's like the whole economy itself is we're pivoting the economy. And we're always looking for talent. And then we have talent that we don't know we have, or because we have misaligned them, we're just utilizing this pot of gold we have, we're sitting on it, we turned our pot of gold to a chair, and then we say we are poor. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, right? So that's the whole point of this group, to just be like that bridge to connect people who are new, or not necessarily new in terms of how long they've been in Canada. Sometimes you're just lost in the space, like you can't find your way. And to just let people come and say, this is a safe place where you can ask all your questions, where you can explore. Like, we are not a legal entity of any sort, just hang out. And this evening we are talking about, coaches. Like, do we need professional coaches, especially when you are in a career pivot? So what is the place of coaches? And last week I put out a poll just to see what people feel about that. About, do I need a coach for my career transition? So about 50% of people said, yes, I need a coach. About 4% said, no, I don't need a coach. And 46% said, nice to have, not necessary. So, so yeah, we're just gonna talk about that and see what is the place of hiring a coach, like actually getting dedicated help, because we have a lot of resources in the system, but do we need dedicated help? Like, is it worth it to actually go hire one? So that's the topic we'll be discussing tonight. And we have here with us, okay, if my screen messes up again, I'm gonna have you guys introduce yourself.
You're doing great, Mumi. Or we'll just make up introductions.
I can't find the screen where I'm supposed to read it out from. So I just have Michelle first. Michelle, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, of course. Yeah, let's do that. So hi everyone, my name is Michelle Carrizosa. So I am a program manager from AWS turned tech career coach. So last year I left my big tech job to actually do career coaching full time. And pretty much my focus is doing kind of like, as Wumi was saying, the fact that I actually struggled a lot to get into tech coming from a non-conventional background was actually what inspired me to create what I created now, which is, helping particularly women, but I also help anybody else kind of position their past experience so they are able to transition into the tech field. Normally, I work with people who want to get into top tech companies. So that is a little bit about me.
Thanks, Michelle. Brian?
I'll try and keep my introduction brief. So nice to meet you. My name's Brian Palmer. I'm a professional career coach. I've been a career coach for coming up on 8 years. And prior to that, I practiced human resources. I'm a born and raised Calgarian. Even though I don't live in the city right now, one of my favorite things is just growing the city's economy, helping people create great careers within the city. But I've been really fortunate in my 8 years as a career coach. I've been lucky enough to help about 800 professionals across the globe. And that's been everyone from new grads, students in high school. Youngest person I coached was, I think, 13 years old, all the way up to CEOs, people retiring. So I love working with anyone and everyone. But one thing I'll say before anything else is immigrants are very, very near and dear to my heart, or anyone trying to break into a new industry is always near and dear to my heart. 40 years ago, my mom moved to Canada from Hong Kong. And so even though I'm a first generation Canadian, that story and the ability for people to break into a new country with great opportunities is something that's really near and dear to me. So thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brian. Thanks for coming, and I appreciate your support in the Calgary innovation ecosystem community as a whole. Thank you for all that you do. So I'm just going to get right into it. Is a coach a nice to have?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Like, is it something, how important is it really? So, full disclosure here, I recently got certified myself.
Yep.
As a life coach. I mean, I still have some more trainings to do to get to I still have some work to do around there. But yeah, so for me, it's more of like, a coach is the person that helps you see what is already in you. Mm-hmm. It's not like they have the magic. You are the magic. Mm-hmm. And then the coach lets you see it.
Yeah.
Right? So what are your thoughts on that, Michelle?
Yes, I love that question. I feel that it's funny that people, how much percentage do you say said nice to have? Was it like
46%?
46%.
Almost half,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess to kind of go a little bit more into it, I'll go into my own story with like career coaching. So to be honest, to get into tech, I didn't need a career coach. And by I didn't need, I mean, I didn't know that career coaches existed. So pretty much I was going at it myself, like applying online, kind of like following what people who had already done that, that they had done. And so I was just following whatever they had done. And however, something that I found interesting was that once I launched my business, which was, like a few years ago as well, that's when I actually decided to get a coach, because that's when I realized that, it took me 2 years to get into tech by going at it myself. And that doesn't mean that I was never going to get into tech by myself, right? It just meant that because I didn't have maybe the expertise of somebody else, maybe it's going to take me a little bit of longer time. And so what I say right now, when I like talk to clients and stuff like that, I always say that it took me 2 years to get into tech, so it can take my clients 3 months, right? And usually people are super urgent when it comes to making the transition, because they're coming from a, maybe like they see that this is a perfect place for them, a better kind of move for their career, etc. And just going back to this story of when I hired a coach for the first time, it was for my business. And it was just coming from this place of, I definitely feel that I was a little bit more aware that I had some blind spots, some things that I already kind of knew how to operate. And because I was coming from corporate, I did struggle a little bit to make that transition. So I needed someone to show me those spots and kind of help me coach through them, so I'm able to actually still take the action. So to be honest, yeah, at some point I was also like a nice to have, but I feel that now, having experienced it firsthand, I feel that it definitely is beneficial, and there's a really big ROI for it, depending on what you're going through, even if it's only life coaching, right? It doesn't have to be just career coaching or business coaching. I feel all the coaching is really important to just kind of keep that accountability and that, action going and that momentum going. Yeah.
I'll jump in here. Kind of like you, Michelle, before becoming a coach myself, I had never heard the word and I had never worked with one. And I think that it's become more common in the few years since I got into coaching. I think most people I talk to now, they've heard of the word coaching. They've maybe even know someone who has gone through a coaching program of some sort, whether it was leadership or life or career. Basically, coaching at its essence, I say a great coach, and especially a great professional coach, I think almost stands in between two people in most people's network: a recruiter, or someone who can help you with a certain industry, help you get hired, help you navigate a certain industry, but they more tell you what to do or instruct you what to do and say, here's exactly what you need in your resume. Here's how to get hired at this company. Coaches do that, but I don't think that's the only thing they do. And I don't think it's the highest value thing that they do. Most people in their network have a friend, have someone who can listen to them, who can brainstorm, who they can bounce ideas off of. And I think most of the impactful professional coaches that I've gotten to know, and I've seen them at work, they find a really good way to occupy the space in between those two places: a friend and a recruiter or an expert consultant doing what they do. So they can give you advice, they can give you direction, they can give you a roadmap to where it is that you want to go and help you find that faster and better ways to get there. But I think the most effective coaches don't assume that they have all the best answers for you. And this is similar to what you brought up, Wumi. You said it's in us as job seekers, it's in us as candidates. The main thing I look for before I take on clients to anyone I'm looking at coaching is, are they going to take accountability for themselves? Because I can't do it. That was one of the first lessons I learned as a coach, is I am not here to place you in a job. In fact, coaches, I think one of our first mistakes when we're getting oriented to what we do is caring more than our clients about that client's job search. So I come back to this concept of, what is a coach? What are we good for? I talked about it at a high level. I think there's three really great things that the best coaches do: observation, reflection, and challenge. And so with that comes expertise, guidance, strategy. But observation is looking at a person, hearing a person, acknowledging deeper things than just maybe the words that they're saying. Reflection is feeding that back to them, having an honest conversation. Okay, your voice went up when you talked about that company. What's going on there? Right? Tell me more about that. What are you thinking about there? And then challenge is when a person isn't necessarily holding themselves accountable, or they're not doing the hard work necessary to get there. how can you be that brainstorming partner, but the person who gives them a little nudge and a push to get them where they need to go? I think that those are some of the things the best coaches do. I compare coaches in some ways in the career space to professional trainers when you hire them, right? They will give you observation, they'll tell you what your form looks like, and they'll challenge you to exceed and surpass what your goals are. So there's a little bit of commonality there.
Right. So to be clear, a coach does not replace a recruiter, right?
I don't believe they do. I believe they are different things from each other. I think that I know a lot of great coaches who have recruiting backgrounds, and I also know recruiters who use coaching as a tool. So they're not completely exclusive, but I think they're two different hats from each other.
And the interests are different as well. Like a recruiter serves the interest of whatever company they are working for, while for a coach, you are their client. So you are their success metrics. So that's yeah, I'm just trying to make it clear here. Like a coach does not necessarily have to be an expert in the field you are seeking your career in, right, Michelle?
Yeah, so I feel a little bit differently about that one. So I definitely agree that recruiters are not the same as coaches. And many times, like Brian was mentioning, when people come to us and say, oh, like, do you offer placement in companies or this and that? Like, the answer is no. Like, we pretty much, like you were mentioning, we bring out the best that they have. We work with whatever they have, and we kind of like just run and strategize through coaching, so they are able to make the transition. And in terms of something that I've noticed, particularly for my own niche and for the things that I do, is that you definitely at least need to walk the walk, like people say. I think that the fact that I was actually going through the process to get into tech from an unconventional background, that gives me a view that maybe a recruiter coming from a very conventional background or from an Ivy League school might not have. So I think that definitely that is when the personal brand really plays kind of like a key part into the results that you get people, and also kind of like how can you work with your clients. And I feel that for me, definitely that has been really beneficial. So just going back to this idea, I know that you were talking about certification and stuff like that. For me, something that I feel is also kind of taboo to talk about is not having a certification and being a coach, because I think you can definitely be as effective as someone who has certification. It's all a matter of how you kind of obviously go about the coaching and how you're learning along the way. And but yeah, going back to this idea, I do see it beneficial that if I'm going to hire someone who's, for example, doing business coaching, that they have actually launched a business. Or if I'm going into like a career in pharmaceuticals, for example, and I don't know that space, I definitely see it beneficial for that person to have that background. Yeah, that's my stand on that one. I don't know about you,
Yeah,
Brian.
and that's one commonality I found between both of you, Brian and Michelle. It's like you have both experienced your own career pivot. So you have lived this process. And that kind of, apart from the coaching skills you have, that kind of adds to the human weight you bring into it, because you've walked through that same path, right? And
I want to ask the group something, because again, our familiarity with coaches is different. Our experience, whether we work with one or not, whether we are one or not, is different. Even you, Wumi, Michelle, and I have slightly different perspectives as well. And I think that's a really good thing, talking about the field of coaching. So one of the questions I quite often ask people, like when we're just talking about coaching, is how would you define success if you engaged a coach? And I actually want to challenge the group. Like, if you're willing to throw it in the chat, you don't need to unmute yourself, but if you
can,
were
if you
to
want.
engage, yeah, you can. But like, if you were to engage a coach tomorrow, what would success actually look like? How would you define that? So this is a really interesting question. I've talked with many other coaches, with clients, and I'm seeing a few things just starting to come up. We'll give it more time, but one thing I've found as people type out their answers is usually there are some different answers. And I'll go back to a personal trainer, right? Personal trainers, if people pay them, if they engage them, success might look different. One person might want to train for a certain event. They want to be a bodybuilder, right? They want to go into competition. Maybe a father just wants to play with his kids and make sure he doesn't hurt his back when he lifts them, right? Maybe there's a runner training for her first half marathon and things like that. So it's interesting listening as you're speaking, Michelle, and you are Wumi, that I think based on how we define success for ourselves, I usually share with my clients, my definition of success for people that I work with isn't necessarily that they land a job. My coaching is I really like to help people create clarity and direction in their careers. And if the milestone along the way is landing a job, that's great. But success in how I engage with clients is, do you have a better understanding of your career and how to make that happen across multiple industries? And that's probably going to be different than other career coaches that you'll talk to. So I think that this is one of the most important things is there are so many options for defining what success can look like when you're engaging a career coach. It's really important to find a career coach who aligns with your definition of success.
Mm-hmm. Isabel said something in the chat. A coach is someone that helps mentor and stay focused and find strategies to learn new things. Yeah, I think that's basically what you just said, Brian.
Yeah, I really like that, Isabel, right? So can play the part of a mentor a little bit in terms of providing direction and strategy, but again, it's your journey as the client, and it's your journey as in terms of your career. So it's you who's going to learn new things. It's you who's going to discover. And the reason why I can say I've coached 800 people and I still love it as much as the first day, I probably love it even more if I can be honest, is because every single person's journey is different. Don't get me wrong, resumes start to look the same after you've done more than 800 of them.
Right.
Those can get a little bit tiresome, but like everyone's journey is different and everyone learns new things in the process. I think that's the really cool thing about helping people in their careers.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, do you want to talk about the question Abiodun asked, the relationship between a coach and a mentor?
Yes. Let's see. What's the first one? Oh, yeah. I see. What's the relationship between a coach and a mentor? Can a coach serve as a mentor? I feel that sometimes those can be interchangeable. Like it's definitely someone who's guiding you through the process. I used to have a lot of mentors, for example, in university or even, throughout my time in tech. And I feel that they are a little bit less of a structured pace. I think that for me, that was the main difference. Like, I just feel that you can have mentors, people that, are a few steps ahead of you in a way that you are ensuring that your actions are, heading that way as well, if that's your goal. And coaches, I feel like tend to be a little bit more structured. Obviously, is someone that you also tend to pay. And normally I feel that the relationship can last a little bit longer and also goes a lot deeper than just a mentor kind of telling you what to do. That is my take on that one.
And I think to add a little to that, a mentor is a specialist at something. So when you seek the advice of a mentor, you are basically asking for what to do, right? Like, you have walked this path, how did you do it? Show me. So they tell you what they have done and kind of advise you to do the same. Whereas a coach doesn't necessarily have to be that person. They can be, but they don't have to be. So they are going back to how I used it before, they are the ones that let you see your own magic. They are not going to perform it, but that accountability, that I know how. I have experienced a friend who is a coach. We were not even in a coaching relationship, so to say, but he's a coach, right? And he would just ask me these questions that will, make me really rethink a lot of things and reimagine and dream again. And I think that's so powerful. A mentor necessarily won't do that because they're just telling you what they have done. They're telling you it's more of like a technical skill, passing it along to you. But a coach just works with you, right? And I think that could be a very powerful thing.
Another thing I'll mention, and this is my extremely personal, extremely biased opinion, right? So I do not speak for all coaches at all when I say this, but one of the things I find about mentors is that the relationship a person can have with a mentor can often be for a very, very long time. It can even be a lifetime, right? With some mentors and some people that we look up to. I don't bring this up to say you can't have a coach for a lifetime, but what I've found personally is I actually find it very, very hard to be a coach for longer than a certain stretch of time. In fact, I've never coached a person for longer than 3 years, because after 3 years, I find it hard not to hold that person's agenda as the only part of our conversation. I've gotten to know that person too well and we're friends.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that coaching, based on my definition, is the client holds the agenda. Whereas a mentor, if you're seeking the guidance of a mentor and asking someone, they can hold the agenda, right? They can talk about their experience, they can share, and you learn as a result of it. That's a little bit of the difference in my mind. So there's a time component that comes in. And again, this is very much my opinion, but yeah, I typically don't coach people for much longer because I find because I get to know them so well, it's not really a coach-coachee relationship after a while.
Mm-hmm. And you don't want codependence as well, right? Like you want them to be able to be their best without you being there. So this is like an elephant in the room when it comes to coaching. I mean, these days there are many coaches and all kinds of niches. So it could be like people could get jaded by it. Like, yeah, right. You're also a coach, right? So how do you navigate that? Because even I had to overcome a bit of that, because it kind of and truly the way some coaches present, as if, oh, here I am, I'm gonna solve all your problems, you know. So it kind of gives some bad vibes about the whole coaching thing. What has your experience been in that light? Like, have there been other coaches that kind of merge the discipline of coaching? Have you seen that in your experience in any way?
Yeah, so I'll start. So I feel like I mentioned, I didn't know about coaching until I was already probably in tech. So that was around 6 years ago. And I feel that every time that I heard about coaches, it was just like the ads, like really spammy ads that you get on YouTube or like that you get on Instagram sometimes. And I was really confused about what they used to, because they all kind of like end up sounding the same, or it's not super clear sometimes what they help you with. So for me, kind of when I was navigating, kind of like becoming a coach, so I actually started as a consultant. I was literally kind of just giving out information, holding workshops in terms of how to break into tech. And from there, I actually realized that there was like a mindset component to things. So I realized that you do have to coach people in terms of how to take the action and if they are having any mental obstacles or anything like that. So I was like, okay, so it's not just about throwing stuff at people. It's about actually like having that conversation with them and working in a way that like you bring out the best in you for that specific situation. So then I told that to someone and they're like, well, yeah, that's coaching. And then I was like, oh, okay, so that is interesting. So I started kind of looking into it. Obviously, like everybody, I started looking into certification, starting to see like, okay, what could I actually do? And I actually ended up not pursuing a certification, but also like my business coach doesn't have a certification. So she's really prepared. She, has all the tools that she needs to give me for X or Y thing. So for me, I'm actually really pragmatic in that sense. So having been someone who didn't fit the 100% requirements to get into a job, I understand that it's all about actually getting the results. And if that result for you is having more clarity, or for you is having a job, you have to be able to show those results no matter what that process looks like, right? Because that process might look different from coach to coach. So for me, kind of going back to your question, I feel that, yeah, there are some kind of like coaches that might not really be coaches out there, that maybe don't have the best interest of the client in mind. But I feel that the most majority, they are kind of trying to do their best that they can, and they are kind of like teaching the things that they already did for themselves. And that for me is really important. Also, going back, my business coach, who's also kind of like having all the success stories, including myself, she also didn't have a certification. So she's taking a lot of programs and stuff like that, but she's also not certified. So for me, that I really don't like putting things into boxes in general, just because I was never put in one when I got into tech or when I did X or Y thing. So that is my take on the coach thing. And I know this is like a really taboo subject, like you say, it's like a big elephant in the room. It's such a new field that honestly it's hard to have a really hard take on it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So you Brian, you work for a company. You're not a coach that owns your own company, right?
I work for a company, and then
Mhm.
prior to signing on full time with this company, I owned my own coaching business for
Oh.
7 years.
Oh, okay.
And so I've been on both sides of the equation, and I'm a professional coach with the International Coach Federation. So Michelle talked a little bit about being certified. I'm certified. And ironically, I want to say it's been about 4 years that I've been professionally certified. In the 4 years I've been professionally certified, not one client has asked me if I'm certified or not. And I really do believe that wasn't the reason why I got certified either. So I really like what Michelle said is, what are the results I'm looking to generate by engaging someone? And how do I believe they can help me? So this is a little bit related to the question that I saw pop up in the chat, which is, what qualities should I look for in a coach, right? It's related to this question of success. And I think if I were a client today and I actually were hearing about coaching in this conversation or another venue, I would really think about what questions would I want to ask, because I actually love it when clients or potential clients start interviewing me, because I already challenge people. If you even are thinking of engaging a coach, the most important metric I've seen in people who succeed in career coaching, they treat it as an investment, not as a cost. And let me say more about that. So a cost, I quite often say, if I pay a consultant something, I might get a report back. I might get a roadmap. I might get a playbook. I might get some analysis. But they say, here's the expertise, use the information. That's a cost, right? And so I can choose to do with that whatever I want. The reason why I say the people who tend to be really successful before they engage in career coaching is they have a mindset of, this is an investment. Just like that professional trainer, they say, it's my growth that matters. This is my path I'm going to walk. I want someone to walk that path alongside me, not someone who just gives me a playbook at the start and says, good luck. That's a bit of the difference between consulting skills and coaching to me. And I'm not knocking consulting. My official title at my company right now is senior consultant. So I'd be a huge hypocrite if I were knocking consulting right now. But in terms of what I try and engage, when someone says, I want to coach, what I try and clarify with them is, so as I understand, you do want expertise, you do want some advice, but that's not the only thing that you want. You want a brainstorming partner. You want, the metaphor I usually use is, the client drives the car, the coach navigates and helps point out direction and provides destinations, shortcuts, but really helps that driver think more clearly and observe more clearly. That's kind of the differentiation. So when people start saying they're a coach and all they're doing is consulting, that drives me crazy. But I think it's totally normal for coaches to borrow consulting skills, for consultants to borrow coaching skills. A blend is totally normal, but if one person is 100% and none of the other, I don't think they should call themselves that other thing.
Right. So Shola, you asked that question, and I'm just gonna put you on the spot a little. Like, if I could flip it back to you, what would you want to see in a coach?
Honestly, that's what I'm asking, because for me, I'm thinking of, can someone refer me to a coach, or can I use success stories, just like Mitchell talked about initially? So can I use one of those? Can someone refer me to the person, or can I use success stories? Yeah.
Like success stories based on their past clients?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I think what you said mostly was more of, as a coach, what you want to see before you take on a client, right? So that's why I was kind of flipping it around, that how about the client? What do you want to see in someone? So Shola was saying, should I look for success stories, who they have helped in the past, or should we be looking at how successful they are on their own path? Or is it more mushy things like how empathic are they, or all of it?
Or maybe can someone that have engaged with them in the past refer me, okay, I can vouch for this person as a coach. You understand what I mean? Because I can engage a coach, interview the coach, and he or she might sound so well, convince me, but so that's exactly what I'm talking about.
So it's such a good question, right? What qualities, what should I ask? How should I screen, especially with more and more coaches out there and more people calling themselves coaches? It's easy to feel overwhelmed, right? And to say, I'm just going to do it on my own. It's not worth spending all this time trying to navigate. I usually tell people, how do you pick your realtor? Most people pick a realtor unless they're moving to someplace brand new through word of mouth, through someone they know, who they trust, who might have gone through a similar journey and can speak on behalf of what that coach was like, what they helped with, what they didn't help with. I'll share with you two of the questions I usually encourage my friends, if they're, because I don't let them hire me as a career coach. I say that's the last thing you want to do. But if they're looking at engaging a career coach themselves, I always encourage them to ask these two questions. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pop an article in the chat that I've sent friends and family. So it'll summarize these questions and more. So they're questions you can ask to interview potential career coaches, business coaches, leadership coaches, whatever it might be. But I really like these two questions for gauging fit. So first question is, how will you know if I'm the right client for you? So it's not actually the coach telling you everything about their approach. It's them meeting where you're at and getting them to define, what do they look for in a client? Right. So I've shared a little bit what I look for personally in a client. It doesn't necessarily mean that every coach should define it the same way that I do. It's very personal. Right. So what do you look for in a client? How would you define success as a coach? And then secondly, I usually encourage potential clients or people screening coaches to ask, what would make you not take on a client? because I actually think the most dangerous coach is one who would say yes to everyone. Again, I think that's just, I'm here to take your money. I'm here because this is a transaction. That's a cost, not an investment again. So really important, I think, for candidates to screen coaches and say, what's the criteria that would make you not take on someone? And that might actually identify that you're not a good fit with that coach if they bring something up.
And using that cost investment paradigm also shifts how you define the success. Because even if you don't land a job 3 months after working with that coach, but you have grown, because it's an investment, you'll know that there'll be like a long-term benefit, a long-term return on investment for that, rather than if it's more of a cost benefit, like a snapshot cost benefit analysis, right? So I think that approach helps, it helps both the coach and the client to have a more long-term view of what success could be, like what's possible if it's not just a transaction. Yeah.
Yes. And going back to the success stories, I know that he was mentioning something about success stories, and something that Ella mentioned in the chat, which is actually spot on, is the fact that, yeah, when people come into calls, obviously, right, you can relate, and they say like, oh, like I really want to know the success stories. I always mention that the success stories are there to inspire them to see what's possible versus being it a guarantee that they can get the same thing, because ultimately it all boils down to your effort, to kind of like how coachable you are, how eager you are, to make this happen. Because even though if people pay thousands of dollars to get coached, many times they do secretly expect the answers, and that's just not how coaching works. We are there to kind of guide them and to show them the way. Like you said, I love that what you said, Brian, about the driver and us being the person who's navigating with them. And that is pretty much what there is to it. Of course, there are people who will see the results faster than others. That definitely depends from person to person. But just going back to this idea to testimonials, success stories, it is all what's possible for you, like depending on who you can relate to, but it's not an indication of, okay, this is a guarantee or you get your money back, or this is a guarantee or you don't belong in this field or anything like that. Yeah.
And that could be hard to swallow, really. That, okay, so I'm gonna spend this money, but then it depends. Like, I'm not sure if it's going to be successful. I'm not sure if this is going to work for me. So it is like, it is quite sensitive, especially. And if you don't have a job or you're in transition, you probably are broke already, right? And now you have to spend money and there's no guarantee. So like, absolutely, it's not a light decision to make. And that's why the coaching partnership has to be well thought out, because it's supposed to have like a synergistic effect on what your efforts already are, right?
It's not an easy decision, Wumi. And I think particularly a lot of my work has dealt with people who have been laid off or people going through career transitions. So money is usually a bit tighter. You usually, even if a person has an investment mindset, they might not have the funds right now to make that investment. It just doesn't make sense at this stage. And of course, having the funds to actually invest is important, but this is where I quite often say engaging with a career coach, people who tend to be successful, they view it as, I usually say people make up their money and then some. I have actually found people who engage career coaches, they make it up in 2 or 3 different ways. Number one, they usually land the jobs they're looking for sooner, and they usually land a better job because of the strategies and roadmap that they use and the accountability they use with a coach. So they're not unemployed for as long. That's important. But again, you need to have the money up front. I don't want to dismiss that. Number 2, I find that people who get the job offer are better equipped to negotiate it. So they actually quite often land higher offers because they have the information, they have the strategy to succeed in negotiation. So many clients that I've worked with, they say, this is way higher than I thought I would land. I more than made up the investment that I made in career coaching. That's always a huge win when they're able to do that. And it's a product of their effort, but having someone and a navigator to guide you can really help with that strategy. And then thirdly, I find the people who have more confidence and clarity in their careers, they're more intentional and they make more money. And so for me, and I'm incredibly biased again, being a career coach, right? But I've also studied the topic of careers for basically my entire career. I think the people who are most intentional and they treat them as investments, you make 10 times your investment by doing it. So I definitely don't want to dismiss there's cost, there's money. That's important. It's not right for everyone, but I think there's some great benefits if you have the right mindset to go along with it.
Right. So I'm just going to ask, as coaches now, like Brian, you ran your own business for a while. Michelle, you run your own business. How profitable is this career? Like, I can tell it fills your bucket. I mean, if I think about myself, being able to help someone be all they are, like that's almost enough pay, but of course it won't pay the bills. So in terms of having this as a career, what do you say? Like, is it sustainable? Is it, or does it depend on the environment? Yeah.
I think it highly depends, like anything, right? I think there's always a small percentage of people at the top who are doing incredibly well, and then there's a large percentage of people who are maybe doing it as a side hustle, you know, and it's not supposed to be a living. I'll share with you, because I do belong to the International Coach Federation. So the data from there most recently is the average salary in North America for a coach was about $60,000. So that's not that high in the grand scheme of North American salaries. It's just over the American average for like all jobs. So it's maybe a little bit more highly paid than the average, but when you consider there's a lot of maybe manual labor jobs included in that American data, it's probably not that high. That doesn't include individuals who don't and maybe aren't certified, and usually certifying bodies tends to skew to people who have been in that profession for a lot longer. So I usually like to think that coaching isn't necessarily a full-time job for most people out there, but there are absolutely people who have built like amazing careers, amazing businesses. I think it's really exciting for people who are passionate in that profession. And that's something I would look for if I were looking for a coach today is, does my coach like what they do? That's really important in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I totally agree with you, Brian, on all that you said. So I feel that the main reason why I mean, obviously there are people who will choose things for mainly the money, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, I went into tech for the money mainly. And however, for the coaching, I did see it as a more of a line career path for me. So I saw it as something that I definitely want to do long term, and if it can be profitable, it will be fine, right? So for me, the goal that I started with, so back in Amazon, obviously I was making beyond 6 figures because I was also living in Seattle, so salaries are a lot higher. And my goal with my coaching business was to get to at least match my tech job salary. And that is where I am at right now, actually. So like since last year up until like around maybe next month, I would have hit that number right there. And I feel that like I said, I didn't start thinking like, oh, I'm going to match my salary and I'm just doing it for the money. Also, I do tend to live in a more expensive city. So I feel that the salary that I have to have has to be higher. So that is how I see it, but it can be profitable. There were months where I was not profitable back in the day, back when I was starting, back when it was like a side hustle. there were months that I didn't have any clients, but that's also why you go about it with the commitment, right? Like you are committed to it, like you stick around for, I feel I'm a big believer that if you stick around with something for enough, like long enough, you will make something out of it in terms of profitability. So that is where I'm at with that topic. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. And another thing about coaching that I think as we get into the future of work and all roles are being redefined, I really think having coaching skills in leaders is very essential. Like it's not enough to lead people from a place of I know what's right and I'm gonna just let people know. But coaching kind of leadership is bringing out the best in the people you're leading. So I think every leader should have coaching skills. They don't have to become coaches in terms of title, but coaching skills are quite becoming essential, I believe.
Wumi, I couldn't agree more. When I meet people and they say, I've never heard of coaching, what is it? I usually say, it's the art of asking great questions. That's what it boils down to me. It's not telling people what needs to be done or what they need to go do. It's asking a great question that has them think and challenge and reflect. That's really what it boils down to. And there's probably a lot more, but exactly what you said. I think some of the most powerful leaders I've worked with, I've coached, I've been supervised by, they knew the power of a great question and when to use it rather than telling me what needed to be done.
I agree. And I feel that also that falls a little bit more on the company sometimes when they are like, putting people in leadership positions and stuff like that. I personally have encountered a lot of people in leadership or managers, especially in big tech, that are not super good with the whole coaching thing. And so I feel that that's also why if you're exposed to coaching, if you're exposed to that, I feel that going back to Brian's points about why coaching actually helps if you work with a coach is because you actually tend to become that person who asks those questions because now you're used to that whole process. And many times, unfortunately, not everyone that you'll encounter at work in your career or in leadership will have that ability to do that or have been exposed to that, which is kind of sad because obviously people at the end and sometimes leave jobs just because of that, because of the bad communication or just for bad leadership. And it's sad, but unfortunately it's definitely there and it needs to be more embedded into the culture of a lot of companies.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian and Michelle. Thank you for spending your evening with us. And any last thoughts? How can people find you if they need to reach you?
People can find me easily. You can track me down on LinkedIn. You can find me at the weekly Careers in Tech events through Zach Novak's groups. Don't be shy. I'm always happy to talk to people. And like I say, one of my personal missions is building great careers in the Calgary economy, especially being born and raised Albertan. I love helping people. So find me in any way you want to, but LinkedIn is usually the easiest and the best way. So it's just my name and then my initials PCC at the end, because that's the easiest way to find me. There's a lot of other Brian Palmers. You type that in, you'll track me down.
Yes, the same for me. Just type my name onto LinkedIn. I'm mostly hanging on there. If you ever have any questions, you can connect with me. And I also put a lot of free content that might be helpful for you or inspirational at least. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian and Michelle. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us, Wumi.
Thanks, Wumi. This was fun.
So does anyone have any other thoughts they want to share?
I think sometimes I just have one just about like coaching in general, about how, we talked about, management telling you what to do. And I think that that's probably a real issue when people get coaches, they expect the coach to just tell them what to do. And then for them to sort of get their head around is, no, that's not what coaching is all about, because, you know, you're just so accustomed to that. So that was a really good thing to bring up about, it's all about good questions. So, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. If if I have not collected your email address before and you don't mind being part of our email list, please type it in the chat. I will update the list. Okay, I think we're done for tonight. Any more thoughts?
This was awesome.
Yeah. All right then. Have a great evening, everyone. There's still a lot of sunshine outside, so.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
I'll leave the room open for anyone that wants to hang out for a little longer. Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Michelle. Thank you,
Yeah.
Brian.
Thank you. Nice
Thanks,
meeting you,
Louis.
Brian.
Thanks again for the
Yeah.
invite.
Bye. Thanks, Brian. Hi, Ross. Been a while.
Yeah, it's been a little while at this point. I know I was dropping